Israel and the United Arab Emirates have agreed to normalise relations. It's a historic peace deal the Trump administration helped broker. Middle East correspondent Eric Torchek is in Jerusalem and Chief Foreign Correspondent Phil Williams joins us now from Washington. Eric, I want to start with you. What's the significance of this announcement?
Lisa, this is the first time a Gulf Arab state has normalised its relations with Israel. For some perspective, in the 1970s, when the UAE was formed, it prioritised the Palestinian national struggle well above its relationship with the United States, joining an oil boycott of the US because of US support for Israel during the 1973 Middle East War. So 5 decades later, what's changed is that these Arab nations are now clearly putting their relationship with the US much more highly than they prioritise the Palestinian national cause. They see opportunity in being friends with Israel, and they have a common enemy in Iran. And this is not necessarily President Trump's achievement, because it confirms what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been saying for years, that these countries are dealing quietly with Israel and that they have common cause. Here's how he explains the significance of this announcement.
Israel and the UAE are two of the most advanced countries in the world. Together, we'll transform the region and forge an even better future for our people. This is a future of peace, a future of security, and a future of prosperity. I've always believed that we could establish peace with the Arab world.
Eric, what do you anticipate is going to be the reaction from Palestinians?
Already, Lisa, the Palestinian leadership has said that this is a stab in the back, even though the UAE has said, look, we did this to help Palestinians. The UAE foreign minister said that this decision was taken because of the imminent threat, Israel's threat, the plans of the Israeli government to annex large parts of the occupied Palestinian territories within the West Bank. It said that Israel agreed to suspend that annexation in exchange for the formalisation of ties. But straight after the announcement, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu came out and said in Hebrew, no, annexation is absolutely still on the table. We still intend to do it because the Trump administration's Middle East peace plan allows us to. So what this does is, in fact, confirms what the Palestinians have suspected for a long time, which is that their issue has slid off the table in terms of importance, that they have fewer friends, and they're now under more pressure to make some historic concessions that they've been pushed towards by the United States and Israel.
Well, the announcement came from Washington. Phil Williams, you're there. Talk to me about the optics of how it was revealed.
Well, it's great for President Trump. He was in the room with his security advisors, Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, who is involved in these sorts of negotiations in the Middle East. And at last he had something positive to announce about the Middle East. It's been a long time coming, and it is a major achievement. But the fact that an agreement that is between two countries in the Middle East, and yet it's announced in Washington, may on the surface seem strange, but of course nothing much of major consequence happens without Washington's involvement, at least oversight, and it made it very clear that today that was Mr. Trump's call, and of course that helps his claim to be a statesman on the world stage solving world problems.
And a suggestion from him that there'd be some kind of signing ceremony in Washington, DC. No doubt he'd like to see the theatrics around that, but he's also predicting more countries to come.
Yes, he is, and he's saying that this is just one of a number to come. That's perhaps wishful thinking, who knows? But certainly the Israelis are talking to other countries in the area, but he's also talking about Iran. Now, his main message there is that what the Iranians are hanging out for is Joe Biden, because they'll get a softer deal and that they'll go on their evil way as far as he's concerned. But he's saying, if I'm re-elected, there will be a new deal between the United States and Iran within a month. Here's what he said.
Iran is going through very difficult times, and I appreciate that. And I'll say this, and I can say it very publicly, that if I win the election, I will have a deal made with Iran within 30 days. They'll make a very fast deal. They're dying to make a deal, but they'd much rather negotiate with sleepy Joe Biden than with us.
Yes, well, over the next 80 days, everything's going to be tied up in that, under that umbrella of US politics. Phil Williams and Eric Torczek, thank you to both of you.